All right, guys, welcome back to From the Floor with Gord Hurley. Today's guest, Member of Parliament, Corey Tochor. Sir, thank you for coming and making the time. I really appreciate it. I know you've been busy,
Happy
and
to
I
be here.
know summer vacay is right around the corner, so I won't keep you too long. I'll open this up, guys, with just a little bit of a background about a significant person in both our lives, and I'd like to read about him. A dying father had to leave the country 3 times a year to get treatment his own doctor could not legally give him. His name was Thomas Hartle. Stage 4 cancer, and psilocybin therapy was the thing that eased his end of life anxiety. Health Canada cut him off. He died in 2024 at age 56. Today, my guest, Saskatoon MP Corey Tochor, has a bill named after Thomas. It is about whether any Canadian, including veterans I work with, ever has to do that again. Very interesting point to this that I find our stories a little bit connected is the first webinar that I took part in for psychedelics and trying to learn what's going on in Canada was with Thomas himself. And he gave the webinar from the hospital bed. So I don't think I ever told you that, but
Oh,
it means a lot. It means a lot to me to see what you've named the bill after him and the importance that he had on both our lives. Do you want to take us back with maybe a little bit of your history with him?
yes, Gordon. And that is what wonderful little connection to Thomas that you and I share that I wasn't aware of until now. Thomas was a very special individual. He reached out to me, and like many others that your listeners and viewers will have shared experiences similar to this. Thomas was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, given months to live. And if anyone that has experienced that with a loved one, their anxiety and mental health is just not where it should be. Obviously, you're thinking about everything but fighting cancer at that point. And Thomas's physician and oncologist couldn't treat his cancer because his anxiety was off the charts. So after trying every other pharmaceutical approach, his physician prescribed psilocybin counseling, and he received legal psilocybin through Health Canada. Even today, your doctor could prescribe psilocybin counseling, but to be grant access to it, the bureaucrats in Health Canada have to sign off on it. And for Thomas, he was lucky. They um, provided his special access permit to um, go through the counseling with this medicine, and it was working, where his anxiety came down, and so much so that his doctors could start treating his cancer. And it was working up until the 3 year mark, and that's when Health Canada, the bureaucrats, I'm not a doctor, neither are they cut him off and denied what his physician and what he was um, able to fight cancer with this medicine. They cut him off, and they came to see me. And I kind of had a cursory knowledge of mushrooms growing up. I didn't think much of them as medicine, but that kicked off. Well, I made the commitment to Thomas that I'd look into it. And as any member of parliament, if you have a constituent that brings something to your attention, you should look into their concerns and ideas on how we can, as a country, treat mental health and addiction differently. And what I found was there's many people similar to Thomas that have a story of how psilocybin has helped them. And then I got into a meeting with some of the doctors and researchers and found out that this plant is non-toxic and non-addictive. And it just doesn't make sense on why we've been treating psilocybin the way we have for the decades that we have. And coming from a province like Saskatchewan, there's no reason that this should be. We used to lead the nation and the world in psychedelic research at the Weyburn Hospital. And the actual term psychedelics was coined by the director of medicines, Humphrey Osborne, way back in the 50s. So it's very fitting that I bring forward Thomas's bill, an MP from Saskatchewan, that will streamline access for physicians and also pave a way for Health Canada to approve these medicines. So right now in Health Canada, we have what's called a priority review, and it requires when a molecule is submitted to that program and accepted, that they have 180 days to render a decision if that molecule should be prescribed here in Canada. So it doesn't guarantee that it will be, but it guarantees the timeline. And this is something that our other G7 countries have moved on. Australia is light years ahead of Canada. Germany, Switzerland, and even the States moved on, creating a pathway that we can unlock the potential of psilocybin counseling in Canada.
Take us through the path. So it was about 3 years ago that Thomas met with you or so,
Mhm.
leading up to now to put this bill forward, with your own apprehensions. Like, how did it make you feel comfortable? Was it the history and all the researchers and experts you were speaking to?
It was a combination of things, and you're right. The first, maybe some of the viewers for the first time is hearing about psilocybin, and everyone might have their preconditioned view on psychedelics or what they've been told, and I was probably in that camp. I was hesitant. This is not why I got involved in politics. But when you look at the science and meet individuals like yourself and Thomas and other veterans that, we ask these young men and women to put on the uniform and to put their lives on the line. And when they come back, more times than not, they suffer from PTSD. We know, unfortunately, the suicide rates with veterans is not where it should be. And after hearing those stories, I couldn't stay on the sidelines. So I did draft this bill, and in honor of Thomas, and for us to introduce a private member's bill, there's some internal progress that or check marks that you have to go through within the Conservative Party of Canada, and very encouraged by my colleagues' support and or lived experiences with loved ones that have been benefited. That was a surprise for me, is unscripted at a meeting that it was a private meeting, but I can say that I had a colleague that um, he described that they were missing their sister for over a decade, um, as she battled different mental health um, issues. And one session of psilocybin counseling, and they got their sister back. And you hear from colleagues and supporters of the Conservative caucus where we have diverse views and lived experiences and strengths. It was, you know, that first conversation, I was a little cautious, but today, now that it's introduced and I've been doing media and meeting with different researchers and doctors, I've just scratched the surface of how many different Canadians have benefited from this in one form or not, that it doesn't make sense on how we are currently regulating psilocybin in Canada.
Interesting that you made that point, because it's always the people come out of it's always a whisper or a sidebar conversation where someone that you would never expect it starts talking about psychedelics and how it's impacted them or impacted someone in their life. And uh, it makes me happy. It shows the difference between the outward view of psychedelics and what I think a lot of us are leaning towards.
Well, we've had 10 years of enabling hard drug use in Canada that the Conservatives have been against for all the right reasons. If there is drugs out there that are addictive, that will kill Canadians, we have to do everything possible to limit that exposure to Canadians. Grouping psilocybin into the same category as meth and fentanyl and crack cocaine makes no sense at all. As much so as we've seen in British Columbia, they've decriminalized those substances, but left the one medicine that former addicts say that is helping them stay clean. And we're not talking daily use, we're talking one or two counseling sessions on psilocybin that have provided this um, break for these addicts that for some reason it's the special sauce, and that's another thing that researchers will have a better way of describing this. But for me, the special sauce isn't just the active ingredient of psilocybin, it's the counseling you go before the session, then you digest the medicine, and then it's the sessions afterwards that some of the clinicians that I've met with claim that over the breakthroughs they make in one session is equivalent to some patients having over 10 years of talk therapy. So it's the breakthroughs like that that we need in Canada, because we do have an epidemic of mental health and addictions on our streets. We see it every day. You go down any major city street in Canada and you see lost souls. And the compassionate thing is to find treatments that work and to fund treatment facilities so that we can address their mental health or addictions issues. And the way I look at those two issues, it's two sides of the same coin. One leads to the other. And if there is, and science has shown that psilocybin for some patients can be that missing link that we've been looking for. And I'm so proud of the team and of the people that I've met that along and joined this mission. Gordo, I would say you're one of them as well. That hearing your story and your conviction that there has to be something better for our veterans, for especially for PTSD, and I can't I can't hear these stories and not act. That would be the uncompassionate thing. So since Tuesday, I've been busy doing with national media, local media, radio. I attended a premiere of a document on seniors that are finding the benefits of psilocybin in their late stages. And you hear of other stories. The as much as the veteran stories are very moving, and as a country, even if it's just for the veterans, we should move on it. But for end of life care and palliative care, I can't think of a more intrusive thing that a government can do is that for a Canadian that is dying, for their government to block what their doctor is recommending for that patient's care. And that's what we have in Canada. Either Thomas or Pistol Pete is another individual that's in Ontario that's dying from a pulmonary disease. He waited 11 months to receive an over 15-page document from Health Canada saying that he's not dying quick enough or painful enough for them to grant him access to psilocybin. This doesn't make sense. It gets worse with him, where the system has approved him for MAID, which I'm grateful that he hasn't taken up that approval. And we do know that as much as there's some talk that MAID could be changing to include people with mental health distress, conservatives have been dead set against the expansion of MAID for people that are depressed. And with same day services that they're providing, where you can get approved for MAID in the morning and be gone in the afternoon, just because someone is having an episode or a tough time. We all have loved ones that are struggling with mental health challenges. And it's a little bit of the importance of this bill passing quickly is because of the coming changes in MAID. There are some early indications there might be some review from the Liberals, but we're going to keep fighting and bring this up to the Canadians to know that we are treating people struggling and trying to look for natural, non-addictive, non-pharmaceutical approaches. And that's what, for me, psilocybin represents.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole MAID discussion is pretty insane. And why wouldn't we be trying other things before assisted suicide? Quite confusing, disturbing, and makes it easy to fight the cause that we're both on and seeing it. Especially when people think about psychedelics, they think about just going, having the crazy trip, but they don't realize the application and neurophysiologically what's happening in your brain, what's happening at a cellular level, what's happening between the networks in your brain, and the wide use and application of them. Like you said, harm reduction, opioid use disorder. And when we talk about psychedelics and harm reduction, there is a direct link between the two. And that obviously goes down into MAID. So it's why are we're like missing a whole treatment in between these issues. It's just whoop right to MAID.
The state will block you for accessing a plant that's non-addictive and a non-toxic, but the same state will help you end your life. This doesn't make any sense to me.
Right. They're also the same people that praise Aboriginal rights and everything that goes along with that, which I champion. But here we are pushing down plant medicine that's been used for ages and ages with Indigenous
Yeah,
cultures in favor for the white man pharmaceuticals. It's,
big pharma.
I don't know, something, yeah, big pharma for sure. Something doesn't make a lot of sense. So when it comes to the bill in plain terms, what does it represent? Like, how does it work?
Well, in the fall, when we get back, we'll have our debate in the House of Commons, and that'll be the first opportunity to really gauge what the other parties are feeling towards this. So we to get to committee, we need the majority in the House. And early signs, and this is the exciting part, is that this is not a nonpartisan issue. And I saw this with, I've taken 2 trips down to Washington, D.C. to meet with Democrats and Republican policymakers, senators, House representatives. And down in the States, this is a nonpartisan issue. This is a healthcare issue, mostly driven by our veterans, because as much as your story and other veteran stories on how psilocybin has helped them, um, American veterans are in the same boat. So I attended the Senate Veterans Committee, and we had the Senator Sheehy from Montana, and a Democrat that brought forward a bill that helped with funding for research and care for veterans. And we had every major veterans association in the states as witnesses support their initiative to support veterans that are looking for natural, non-toxic, non-addictive solutions to their healthcare issues. And after those trips, I was really confirmed that this isn't a partisan issue, and that this is something that the science has shown that it is time for society to look at psychedelics and psilocybin specifically. Um, and since returning, and even last week when I introduced this bill, the encouraging part is that at the end of the session, right before we break for the summer, it's a mad rush. There's a lot of partisan politics being played. And on the day that I announced I needed to get unanimous consent from the House to introduce this, and I was lucky enough that on a unanimous consent, all it takes is one member in the chamber to rise and say no, and this would have been killed. But that didn't happen. I got to introduce this bill, and we'll be able to debate it later in the fall. And I'll have the rest of the summer to crisscross Canada, both physically and virtually, like we are today on this podcast, to talk to Canadians and hear firsthand their stories on how psilocybin has made a difference in their lives. And even since last Tuesday, I've met people that full sides of the spectrum that are fully supportive of Thomas's bill, because Thomas was an individual that shouldn't have had to fly to the Caribbean to access this medicine after the bureaucrats cut him off. That makes no sense for a country as proud as we are, as Canada, to treat individuals in that fashion. So I applaud everyone that has reached out to me. Keep checking out the bill. We have a great website called thomasesbill.ca. On there is a petition that every watcher of this podcast, please go on to thomasesbill.ca, sign the petition, forward it to your loved ones and family members and friends that are looking for alternative than a pharmaceutical pill for your mental health and addiction issues in Canada.
This is just for my own question right now. Like, how do you search out politicians that are in like favor of this kind of stuff? I send out emails all the time. It's just kind of like a crapshoot, I feel, a lot of the time. But are there significant ones that people should be looking towards or asking, like specific department
Um,
heads, CAMH or
I,
Health
I would say
Canada, something like that?
you're a local MP, and this is not a nonpartisan issue. So regardless of who represents you and what color their party is, reach out to your MP. Make sure that they are aware, especially if you are supportive of this, and um, do it in a way that's nonpartisan. That there's too much division in our society right now, and here's a way that regardless of where you are in the political spectrum versus your member of parliament, um, the members of parliament should be meeting with your constituencies. And I encourage anyone that's listening or following along, reach out to your MP, set up a time to go have coffee with he or she, explain your position, and that is probably one of the more impactful things they can do is make sure that the representatives from across Canada.
That's a great tip. Bring the coffee. Get your foot in
Yeah,
the door. Bring them a
yeah,
bring the aid. Hot tip, guys.
yeah. Well,
Um,
and don't be partisan, guys. Of the hardcore,
right.
what you might your feelings are. This the science has shown that this isn't. It's above politics. It's about healthcare and trying to find effective treatments for mental health and addiction.
I couldn't agree more. The too much division is it's it's such a waste of effort. It's like social media. It's a cheap fix where you're just like, yeah, you get your gratification of like, oh, boo hoo hoo, put down on them. But it's this isn't about that. This is about humans. This is about healing. Hurt is hurt is hurt. Trauma doesn't discern between if you're liberal or conservative. And this is something that I think we can all get behind and work together on. What would be your advice to someone who's looking for this types of treatment right now?
I would encourage them to go talk to their physician. I'm not a doctor, nor are the bureaucrats that will ultimately make that decision that if your physician are able to prescribe it. I'm a law and order individual that until we change the laws, they need to, in the best of the ability, go through the process. As much as we know that special access program has been denying patients to a point where we've had over 200 physicians and patients get declined and can then appeal through the courts, they're winning. So we do have the courts on our side. Um, I would encourage people that this is a very potent medicine, as much as it's non-toxic and non-addictive. We need to ensure that we're following the science, and there are certain patients and profiles that they should be prescribed, and we have to fall within those kind of guidelines. Of the people that are struggling, especially if we have anyone that might be thinking about taking their lives, reach out and get help. Take it every one step of it at a day. There are great programs that are currently out there. Your life is worth it. Um, there's lots of love out there. Please don't fall deeper into that track that we know that many of people in our society are. That there is hope on the way.
Wow, that's a beautiful message. That's exactly
Mhm.
the perfect way to wrap this up. You're an amazing representative for these treatment modalities. You have my vote as a human, let alone a conservative. I can tell that you're a good man, and I appreciate you, and I know everybody else does too. So thank you very much for coming on and clarifying this.
That's a lot of kind words, Gord. I'll try to live up to the words of encouragement you shared, and let's keep in touch. And if it's an opportunity to come back on your podcast in a month's time to give you an update on how things are going this summer, I everyone that's been watching this, please go to thomasbill.ca, sign the petition, reach out to me, especially if you have a story of how psilocybin has helped you. There is better days ahead for everybody.
Perfect. I appreciate you.
All, uh, all the best, guys. Take care.